Hello, my beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. For those that are new, my name is Nelly. You know, a lot of Christians carry themselves with grace when they're in church, but immediately after church, there's something else. This world has made us to become two-faced. You can change that. Being a Christian is a choice. It's not to tie you down. Nobody's perfect. Only God is perfect. That is why God calls us Christ ambassadors. Even though you're a Christian, there are certain things that you should avoid doing. One of them is gossiping. A lot of Christians think gossiping is not a sin. The minute you share information that you're not supposed to share to your next person, no matter how small it is, most of us have listened to gossip. We've also spread the gossip, and we've also become victims of both. Proverbs 11 verse 13 reads, "A gossip betrays confidence, but a trustworthy person keeps secrets." When you are gossiping, you're betraying the other person's confidence without you realizing it. That is why gossiping betrays confidence. Not only do these words hurt us, it's more hurting when it's somebody that you know, somebody that is close to you, talks about you. Somebody that you trusted. The words that you speak over others through gossiping can be damaging. That is why the Bible says when it comes to gossiping, it betrays confidence. So gossiping as a Christian is one of the things you should avoid doing. I must confess, I also participated in gossiping. The fact that I also listened to gossip was a sin. So when you realize that gossip is a sin, is something that you can stop doing, you can easily do that. The minute somebody comes to you and you know they're going to gossip because you're used to how they start their gossip, you should completely cut them off immediately. Don't even entertain them, don't even listen to that gossip, and don't even participate in that gossip. Because once you participate in that gossip, you're becoming like them. You're not helping the situation. You're just becoming like them. What makes you think that person will not gossip about you? If they can gossip about other people, surely they can gossip about you. Women are very good at this. Most of the time we gossip because we are trying to avoid our flaws. And you feel a little bit better about your flaws. Sometimes it's because of jealousy. Sometimes it's because you want to take the focus to other people's situation instead of focusing on your situation. Perhaps your marriage is going through a rough patch, so you'd rather focus your situation elsewhere. The next thing Christians should not do is idolizing. What I mean about idolizing is when you carry yourself around people, even when it comes to social media. We tend to think that when you are successful is when you show off these material things. We tend to take pictures of our lives so that the whole world can see how we live. We have this digital album full of these pictures, these beautiful pictures that are photoshopped, that are living a life that you're not. And we want people to admire us because we idolize ourselves. We're looking for recognition from other people rather than doing things that are going to serve God. Like self-promotion, it's the way of the world, and social media offers everyone a place to seek recognition. God warns us about seeking recognition. He clearly mentions this in Proverbs 27 verse 2 and also in Matthew 6 verse 1. But most of the time, as humans, we tend to do that. I mean, look at Adam and Eve. When the serpent clearly lied to Eve, telling her, God knows that when you eat that fruit, your eyes are going to be open. Then you will become like him. What was it trying to do? It was trying to make Eve recognize that, oh, if I eat that fruit, I am going to be wiser like God. My eyes are going to be open. All this started a long time ago. It doesn't just start now. We think we're better than God and better than the next person. You may not realize it. Just look at yourself. We need to access our motives when you are reaching out to others. Think about it. Ask yourself, when you are reaching out to this other person, are you doing it for yourself or you're doing it to be recognized by other people? The next reason is we tend not to worship God. In John 4 verse 24, it reads, God is a spirit, and those that worship him should worship him in truth and in spirit. Christians don't realize that failing to love God with their heart, body, and soul is a sin. Worshipping and communicating with God is vital, although some people think when you don't do it, it's a sin. When you are worshiping, you need to be deeply rooted in truth. When you are a fake worshiper, God can see that as well. God sees that you are worshiping Him with your mouth and honoring Him with your lips, and yet your heart is somewhere else. Next one is pretense. A lot of Christians tend to pretend among other Christians in order to fit in. And others pretend because of the teachings that they receive in church. What is worse is when even the leaders of the church, they also pretend. They will pretend to be prophets in order to gain members of the church. Can you imagine the man of God that you trust most is also pretending to be somebody else by giving wrong prophecy in order to gain members in the church? Because these days people are drawn more in prophetic churches and they end up being in the wrong church. God clearly says that in Jeremiah 14 verse 14. The next one is fear. You know, fear brings in the worst in us. It comes in two ways. It could be from God or maybe it could be from the devil. When it's fear from God, one thing about it is it brings blessings. It also leads to life, rest, and peace. Another part of fear is from the devil. Most of the time we have fear of what's going to happen in the future, what's going to become of us. And yet God gives us that assurance in Matthew 10 verse 31 not to fear. But most of the time we do have fear because at the end of the day, we're human beings. We don't trust sometimes what the Bible tells us, even though the Bible talks about fear so many times. Once we learn to trust God, we won't be afraid of anything that comes our way. Because what happens when it comes to fear is it keeps us in the same situation longer than we're supposed to be. The next point is holding grudges. You know, so many people would offend us, especially when it's somebody that you know or somebody that's very close to you. They would do things that you cannot imagine. And we tend to hold grudges and we don't speak about it. Even though you may think you do not have a grudge against anyone, but somehow along the line it will eventually show up. This won't make you feel better because at the end of the day, holding a grudge on somebody, you're beginning to open other doors like anger and bitterness. It clearly shows that in Ephesians 4 verse 31. So when you know that you're holding a grudge on somebody, you need to talk about it and discuss this issue. Over time, if this hurt is left unsolved, it will become a root of bitterness in your heart. So you need to resolve it before it becomes a root of bitterness. And the next point is judging others. In Matthew 7 verse 1 says, "Judge not, so that you may not be judged." This verse is very common, but most of the time we Christians, we know about it, but we still tend to ignore it. Many Christians, even non-Christians, especially when it comes to women, have got a habit of judging other Christians. Like it says in John 7 verse 24, it warns us about judging others because this eventually turns into competition. We compete with so many things, including spouses, siblings, jobs, and neighbors, and many more. Even the Christians as well compete with each other inside the church. The next one is lying. When you read the book of Proverbs 6 verse 16, God describes that lying is one of the things that He hates most. And most of the time, as Christians, we lie. We lie about small things. Like just saying I'm around the corner when you're on a cell phone and yet you're not, you're still at home. So sometimes we think it's just a little lie, but at the end of the day, it is a lie. And we also tend to say things like, God told me so. Know that that person you're saying this to won't be able to prove that. Maybe you're consoling somebody who's just lost a family member. We tend to say things like, oh, at least he's in a better place now. He's in heaven. Now, how do you know that person is in heaven? How do you know they're in heaven? At the end of the day, as humans, we look at people on their behavior, but God sees the heart. So sometimes we say these things and we're not too sure if that person was saved or not. I know you're trying to console that person, but sometimes we need to watch what we say. Next point is idolatry. The most common one that I've seen is when a Christian would idolize their pastor or their man of God. In some Christians, it would be celebrities, especially when it comes to teenagers. And with some, they would idolize their marriage. Now, I know marriage is a beautiful thing and it's a blessing from God. As much as you love your spouse, it doesn't mean you should idolize them. If you feel like marriage is the only thing that completes you, then you're beginning to idolize it. You may not realize that. Especially when you feel all your identity and the importance is when you're married. then you're beginning to idolize it. So marriage shouldn't be an idol, but rather look up to God. Not your husband, neither your wife. The next one is telling the whole world that you're fasting. I know a lot of Christians will go on social media and tell everyone that they are starting a fast. Now, I just don't understand the logic of that, because the Bible in Matthew 6 verse 16 clearly says when you are fasting, you shouldn't make it obvious like how hypocrites do. Jesus said you should also not look gloomy. Instead, you should wash your face and look beautiful. Why is that we need to announce that we're fasting? I can understand when you're having a group fast like in church, or maybe you're having a fast with people in your social media space. So sometimes we do these things without even realizing it. We're beginning to do something that the Bible tells us not to do. Being a Christian is beautiful, especially when you follow God's rules. It's not to tie you down, but to make you a better version of yourself. So as a Christian, we make things difficult, and yet they're not difficult. These are the things that we should avoid doing, especially when you're a Christian. Thank you for watching. If this is content that you like, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next video. God bless you.